Let us execute an immediate, sweeping, analytical vector shift away from subterranean glasshouse isolation traps, weaponized aesthetic captive loops, and traumatic multi-year abduction matrices, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of suburban domestic isolation traps, weaponized plot twist secret loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered collection of raw metafictional trauma survival and trope deconstruction networks running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density satirical parody layout, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating, cliché-shattering melodrama reconstruction and tracking matrix with The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie, the exceptional, pulse-pounding Gothic-tinted contemporary thriller and comprehensive modern literary deconstruction endurance compendium, engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking psychological secrets, razor-sharp narrative traps, and high-velocity structural friction, Freida McFadden. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an endangered primary domestic asset running an unyielding truth extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of a hidden neighborhood infrastructure, and an absolute defense against an encroaching trope-confined psychological erasure containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys where endangered, hyper-observant protective parody protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged character perspectives, corrupt domestic profiling files, and a deadly ring of active personal deadline frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised soap opera ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep psychological profiling, calculated satirical rescue boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing highly advanced thriller trope timing and neighborhood gossip cover-up mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced, locked-in suburban cul-de-sac incubating a vulnerable housewife and a scarred secret spouse who deploy advanced procedural analysis and clandestine parody alliances to systematically forge a seemingly impenetrable defense before crossing a terminal exposure milestone diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. McFadden completely dominates the high-precision, unreliable narrator jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating blank-page paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by classic and genre varks like Lucy Foley, Alice Feeney, Peter Swanson, and Colleen Hoover, while treating realistic baseline terminology logistics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of narrative predictability, absolute structural liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat psychological thriller matrix. Behind our protagonist's rigorous daily footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried survival instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt plot outline deviation sequence, struggling to survive an avalanche of absurd domestic betrayals while managing a shocking series of counterintuitive diary entry updates, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from a network of internal distraction forces, parsing complex behavioral shifts in her daily multi-timeline interaction loops, and shielding her vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless, cliché-driven thriller antagonist offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of routine daily operational constraints inside her highly monitored kitchen refuge, our primary asset registers a total security breach when her husband's supposed demise initializes an irregular descent into active historical infidelity logs, systematically tracking hidden mid-afternoon neighborhood scandals, forbidden pharmaceutical cover-ups, and unvetted twin-sibling swap associations, forcing her into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming narrative resolution. Behind the cul-de-sac's pristine smooth surface facade and elite suburban mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking clock timeline, matching an active, terrifying law enforcement investigation, the unauthorized discovery of missing historical truth templates, hidden intimate motivations, and altered tracking templates reveals that her entire marital sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine domestic courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war
behind closed doors during an isolated suburban event, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress their survival data stream and execute their complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their social and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large backyard patios, dark wine cellars, and private fortified walk-in closets into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroes are forced to deploy their massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve their focus before their adversary's relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes their boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through precise execution guidelines from initial jaw-dropping prologue disclosures to final modern-day triple-twist confrontation loops across multiple unreliable points of view, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via maternal and neighborhood distraction maneuvers, and persistent dominance to shatter their defense, only to realize their hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of personal text messages, every silent choice to stand off against an electronic apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at their reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Freida McFadden reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial week one ambush or managing an invasive disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes midstream point of view shifts switches the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending lock-grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a high-velocity domestic satire psychological, suburban noir parody, meta-fictional plot twist mystery, and high-velocity multi-POV marital secret puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unreliable narrator lie triggers a fatal deadline showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. McFadden writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate outfall, and the distinct, subtle scent of spilled Chardonnay, laser-printed divorce papers, smartphone glare, cold sweat, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputtable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.